So let's be real. Avoidance can be really, really annoying. One day they're texting you all day, the next minute it's like you don't exist. So if you're tired of hot and cold behaviour and feeling like a ghost in your own relationship, you most certainly are not alone. But here's the thing, there is a reason for this sort of behaviour, and when you can understand that reason, you can finally stop letting it drive you crazy. Hi, I'm Amy and welcome to my channel. Here we discuss attachment styles. I'm a certified attachment style coach. I help anxious attachers break the cycle of avoidant relationships. So let's get into today's video because I think everybody who has ever dated a dismissive avoidant partner will relate to this video. But first, let's get into why avoidants are so annoyingly distant. And to get to the root of this, we need to talk about fear. And in the context of a relationship, a dismissive avoidant fears emotional closeness. They fear intimacy because it really does make them feel uncomfortable. It's not something that they can handle because it makes them feel vulnerable and out of control, and they need to be in control. So what happens when you get too close? They pull back, and it's not because they don't like you. It's because they're so uncomfortable with their own feelings. So you as a potentially anxious attached person might not relate to this because anxious attachers are very in touch with their feelings. And it makes it so hard to put yourself in the shoes of an avoidant person because you can feel your feelings, you can process emotions. So when they pull back, it's because they're uncomfortable with their own feelings. It's nothing to do with you. Please stop personalizing this. What this does is it leads to classic hot and cold behavior. So that familiar pattern of you come forward, they pull back. And then your attachment style is triggered, so you might chase more because that is what you've been conditioned to do. You will chase more, they will pull further and further and further back until eventually they can't handle the fear anymore and they just end the relationship. And you're sat there in a tailspin thinking, what just happened? They were affectionate yesterday and distant today. Again, it's not about you, it's how they handle their own anxiety around intimacy. Okay, so let's break down the most annoying things that avoidants do when they're in the relationship. I, for one, will vouch for this because I was in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant partner for 7 years. We'd been hot and cold, on and off, up and down, more times than I can possibly count. The most annoying thing, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of several clients that I've spoken to, is the mixed signals. They're showering you with affection one minute and the next they're cold and distant. Why? Constantly in an internal state of conflict. So they've got a big part of them that really wants closeness and then the other part of them that really can't handle it. Being on the other side of this is like having emotional whiplash. You don't know if you're coming or going. You're walking around in the relationship feeling incredibly confused. But it isn't a game, even though on the outside looking in, it looks like it's a game. It looks like it's manipulation. And now I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that use this to manipulate somebody, but then we're going more into the realms of narcissism. For the sake of this video, typically with dismissive avoidance, they're not trying to consciously manipulate you, but it is a way for them to maintain control. They're controlling the space in between you and them. So the second annoying thing about avoidance is breadcrumbing. If you've ever been in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, you will likely have come across a concept called intermittent reinforcement without even realizing it. So I want you to imagine those little rats in the lab that are pressing a button trying to get cocaine or whatever it is that the scientist is training this rat with. I'm using this as a comparison because this is exactly what is happening in this relationship. So they give you just enough attention to keep you hooked, which is what is happening with the rat in the lab. They press the button, sometimes they get the cocaine and sometimes they don't. They give you enough attention to keep you hooked, but don't actually commit. And again, this is a way of controlling the relationship in order for them to feel safe. Is it annoying? Yes, it is really annoying. Being on the receiving end of intermittent reinforcement is crazy making. But is it calculated? Not necessarily. It's a subconscious protection mechanism, because really they are terrified of losing their independence and autonomy. And the way that they can maintain that is to make sure that you're close, but not too close that it's uncomfortable. So the third thing, ghosting and silent treatment. So when emotions are running high or when there's conflict in the relationship, your avoidant might well resort to silent treatment and ghosting. I know that this happened to me countless times when I wanted to bring up an issue and communicate about something in the relationship with the intention of moving forward, and I would just be blocked for a few days, or that person just wouldn't speak to me. So when emotions are high, avoidants do what they do best. They run. They don't like conflict. They can't function in environments where vulnerability and intimacy is required. And it is their way to maintain control over their own emotions. So they avoid conflict and avoid emotional discomfort so that they can maintain control and maintain their own space, their own autonomy, and that they don't feel like they're being engulfed in the relationship. Is it annoying? Yes. Does it feel manipulative? Yes. Is it conscious? Not all the time. Because a lot of the time it isn't about punishing you. It's about avoiding emotional discomfort. Now, I don't want you to use these explanations as excuses for the behavior, because the behavior is hurtful. It's really hurtful to be ghosted by somebody that you love and you want to build a relationship with. It's really, really annoying to be stonewalled and even blocked by somebody when many issues in relationships can be resolved quite easily. And not only that, their avoidance of conflict actually creates more conflict, because what happens to the other person when it is that you're suppressing everything, you're suppressing your feelings, you're suppressing your needs, you don't want to have this conversation with them, you don't want to rock the boat because you know what's going to happen. And then you're on edge, you're getting annoyed, you're getting irritated, which in turn creates more conflict, which in turn they try to avoid more conflict, which ultimately ends the relationship. So how do you stop this behavior from getting under your skin and ultimately driving you insane? The first thing is completely detaching from this emotional roller coaster, understanding that this behavior is not personal to you. It is a subconscious mechanism that they can't help doing. Again, no excuse, because it is their responsibility to address these issues and change them so that they can function properly in a secure relationship, because you guys have been working on yourselves. You guys have been internally digging so that you can heal your attachment style or any traumas that you have, which are really detrimental to your relationship. And it's not too much to expect for somebody else to be doing the same. So stop taking the behavior personally. Stop thinking that this push-pull dance that they have is because of you, because it's not. The second thing is to create really strong boundaries. If you want to pursue a relationship with an avoidant person, you are going to need boundaries. You are going to want to discover within yourself what behavior is acceptable and not acceptable to you. This does make anxious attachers uncomfortable because you want to set the boundary, but you don't really want to show up for it either. If you set a boundary that you've got no intention of showing up for, that's not a boundary. A boundary is something that you are going to show up for because you value yourself. And 3, start focusing on your own healing. If you're anxious attached, discover what it is that your core wounds are. Discover what your past trauma is. How is it that you ended up in the relationship with the avoidant in the first place? What about the avoidant was so familiar to you that it really drew you in and pulled you in? Why didn't the alarm bells go off? And again, there's no judgment here because I've done the same thing. The alarm bells just didn't ring for me because this behavior was just so familiar on a subconscious level that I didn't even notice. This happened over a period of years where I didn't think that this person was doing anything wrong. I was so used to that sort of relationship. And remember, just because they don't show up for you does not mean that you're unworthy of love. Your self-worth is not tied into this relationship. If this video resonated with you and you feel called to share it, please do hit the subscribe button for more information on this topic, but I will see you in the next video.